New task force is in place in Columbia looking at pedestrian safety. Mayor Bob McDavid appointed 15 people to this newly formed task force just this week. And it was created after several deadly pedestrian collisions in the last few months. Joining me today for more on this effort is 4th Ward Councilman Ian Thomas. Ian, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate that you took the time out of your day to join us. First of all, what do you think of this task force? Why do you think it's so needed here in Columbia?
Well, as you mentioned, we've actually had 4 pedestrian deaths and 4 serious injuries just in about the last 7 months. This is a very unusual spike. If you go back over the last 10 or 20 years, there's typically 1 or 2 serious collisions like this per year. So we really need to respond to this. Interestingly, it does reflect a national trend where pedestrian deaths and injuries have been going up for about the last 4 or 5 years across the country. So a lot of cities are looking into this. They're developing a kind of a community of practice on how to respond. And the task force will look at what other cities are doing to respond to similar situations, examine our own incidents here in Columbia, and then make some recommendations to the mayor as to how to address this issue.
Yeah, and I mean, I know you have a background kind of in this. This is something you do on the side of, being a councilman. Why do you think there's such an increase right now? Why are we seeing that?
Well, I've been reading up sort of on the national research on all of this. A lot more people are walking. People are driving less and walking more, which is a good thing from the point of view of health and reducing our carbon footprint, and people enjoy walking and having places where they can walk. But people are also walking in places where it's really very unsafe. If you look at the collisions that happened in Columbia, they're almost all on the high-speed roads like Range Line, Stadium Boulevard, Providence Road out to the south, College Avenue. I think we've maybe got a bit of a road system that was designed with the assumption that very few people would be out walking, and now we have a lot more people wanting to walk, so we need to look at some adjustments.
Yeah. Now this group will be looking at, recommendations to give to the council. Could we see some cost increases with this? I mean, I know sidewalks are very expensive because we've talked about the Clark Lane project, and it's an expensive task to add sidewalks. What do you think in terms of cost? Can we afford it?
Well, I think there are probably 4 different strategies that we can look at. One is evaluation. We need to really study the collisions that have happened and figure out why they happened and look at the data. The mayor has made it very clear that's important to him. Second is education. There's distracted driving, there's distracted walking, and other issues that education can help with. There's enforcement. We want to look at our rules and the consequences of breaking some of those rules. And then there's engineering, which is the most expensive, as you say, but there may well be some need for some changes there as well.
And that will be obviously something debated about if those recommendations come. What's the time frame? What's the goal here for the task force?
Well, the resolution that was passed by the City Council stated that we would deliver our report and recommendations within 12 months, which actually takes us to May of next year. So that's our time frame. The first meeting is likely to be in a couple of weeks, and then we'll kind of all discuss, what we see as the overall plan for the task force.
Something we will definitely be following. And I also want to talk today about another issue that we're seeing in Columbia, a lack of affordable housing. How big of a problem do you feel this is?
Well, the 2012 consolidated plan that the city produces on issues of housing stated that we are short by about 2,500 affordable housing units. Going back further, in 2008, there was a task force that looked into this and discovered that 7,500 people, residents of Columbia, are cost-burdened. And what that means is that they're paying so much for their accommodation, whether renters or owner-occupiers, that they're in a very, very insecure financial situation where some small problem could tip them over the edge and they would lose their home. So it's a serious problem.
Yeah, any solutions to this problem? I know that just recently you actually voted down an apartment complex, council did. It was a student housing complex, but what are some solutions that we can bring forth to the table?
I don't think that was an affordable student housing complex. Well, there are a number of policy strategies, and interestingly, my colleague Michael Trapp and I attended a conference on this topic in Washington earlier this week and looked at a lot of different strategies, including development incentives to build more affordable housing, zoning changes. And the main message that came out was that we want to really build a coalition to look at this that would include city officials, obviously the housing authority, the social services, and the development industry themselves. And we've had some very positive conversations with the Home Builders Association and the Central Missouri Development Council.
That's good to hear. Well, that's all the time we have for today. We appreciate you coming on. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot, Christy.
All right, now we're going to turn to Bridge.